I want to welcome everybody to this morning's committee hearing. Quorum. I'm joined by Councilmember Perry and Councilmember Alarcon. For those of you that, in fact, Ms. Perry, I'm going to ask you if you would to announce that we do have, we have the translation devices if people want them.
Where is she? She's there. Delia es aquí con el equipo de traducción. Nice job.
Okay, with that said, members, we have a series of appointments today and then a panel discussion that will be the last item. But I think what I want to do now is take up some consent items. We'll start with Ms. Barclay. We'll start with items. I think we could do 9, 10, 11, and 12, so we start with item 9.
Yes, sir. Item 9 is a report from the Community Redevelopment Agency and the Chief Legislative Analyst, and a resolution relative to the transfer of funds to the Department of General Services for the purchase and installation of security camera equipment in and around MacArthur Park.
Okay, on item 9, we'll adopt the CLA report. Item 10.
Item 10 is a report from the Community Development Department and a resolution relative to a First Amendment to a master lease and sublease agreement and related actions for the benefit of USC Radiology Associates Incorporated.
Okay, on item 10, we'll adopt the CDD report and resolution, bringing us to item 11.
Item 11 is a motion, Han-Labange, relative to the reallocation of community development block grant funds from the Department of Recreation and Parks to the CDD on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club of San Pedro for the Daniel Field Skate Park project.
Okay, then on item 11, we'll adopt that motion. That brings us to item 12.
Item 12 is a motion, Wesson Garcetti, relative to advancing municipal housing finance funds to Restore Neighborhoods Los Angeles Incorporated for neighborhood stabilization program eligible operational and administrative expenses.
Okay, now who's the makers of the motion?
You are, sir, and Mr. Garcetti.
Okay, Alan?
Sir, yes, sir.
So what do you recommend we do on this item? I want your expert opinion.
Approved.
Okay, then we will follow his suggestion and we will adopt item 12. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to, I think what we want to do now is item 1. If you could read item 1, and if we have the appointee here, is Mr. Lee.
Item 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Martin Lee to the Affordable Housing Commission for the term ending June 30th, 2010.
Good morning, Mr. Lee. This is not a reappointment. This is an appointment. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what makes you feel that you're qualified to do this, and we'll take it from there.
Good morning, council members. Thank you very much for having me. To give a little background, I was born and raised in Chinatown. I grew up in Echo Park, Silver Lake, and so I'm a member of the Los Angeles Native Angelino for 50-something years.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to John Marshall High, former barrister. Coach Labange was one of my former coaches.
You're kidding.
I
need to poll the members to make sure that won't be held against you.
Members of the Northern League. In fact, went to Marshall and also went to Occidental College for my first year, and I transferred over to USC, where I received my undergraduate degree in finance and accounting. I practiced 2 years as a CPA, and then I went to UCLA for law school. So I'm truly a big fan of Los Angeles.
It sounds that way. Is this the first city commission that you will serve on?
Yes, it is. I have served on various community organizations. I was a member of the Community Advisement Redevelopment Agency for Chinatown. I was a board member and the former chair for 3 or 4 years. And I've been actively involved in organizations such as the Asian Pacific American Legal Center, which is the largest nonprofit Asian American provider of legal services in the United States. I've been on the board for 17 years. Most recently, I served as the chair for the last 7 years.
Okay. Getting back to Councilmember Labange.
Yes.
As you referred to him as coach. So, football?
Football.
And what position did you play?
Believe it or not, I played left tackle.
So, Mr. Labange was a line coach?
Yes, he was.
All right. Any other questions?
That was L.I.
Did you start?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. There are no other questions? Yeah.
Oh, but then I received a concussion because the equipment was inadequate. I have a rather large head, so.
Okay. All right. Anyway, without objection, we'll recommend your appointment to the full council, which I believe is later today.
Yes, it is.
10 o'clock. Okay, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege.
Okay. I've got 2 cards for public comment, and maybe I could have those 2 people come up now, and we'll get to the other items. Al Sabo and Curtis Killings, please come forward. Okay. Did you guys want to speak on item 13? Okay, so we can, we'll get there shortly. Okay, so, or are you public comment, or did you want to speak on item 13?
Yes, sir. 13. 13, yeah.
Okay, so Curtis, we're not at 13 right now. This is public comment. We will get to 13. Okay, we appreciate that. Okay, now that brings us to items 2 through 8. I guess we could just read, you don't have to do every one, just indicate what this is about. So, Ms. Barkley, I'm going to leave this up to you.
These are appointments by the mayor and the council president and the chair of the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee for the Green Retrofit Development Advisory Council. Do I need to read all the names?
Okay, then you know what? I think let's take four at a time. So if you could read the first 4.
Sure. The item 2 is Ms. Elsa Barboza for the term ending September 30th, 2010. Item 3 is Mr. Alberto Mendoza for the term ending September 30th, 2011. Item 4 is Dr. Paul Bunji for the term ending September 30th, 2010. And item 5 is the appointment of Mr. Bill Gallegos for the term ending September 30th, 2010.
Okay, let's bring those 4 forward. Elsa, we'll start with you. How does your experience, based on the experience that you have, how is that going to help you where it relates to this advisory board?
Well, we are really excited to participate, or I am very excited to participate on the advisory council. Scope and the LA Apollo Alliance has done a lot of research, organizing, and policy development around best practices around the country in terms of what makes sense for green building and retrofits in Los Angeles, and we're happy to share that and contribute that expertise to the advisory council.
Okay, Mr. Mendoza?
Yes, good morning. Buenos dias. I'm the outgoing president of the Coalition for Clean Air, and for the last 2.5 years I've been working on making sure that we do everything we can to improve the air quality in our city and, of course, in our state. So I think that experience is going to serve me well here, and in really supporting the mayor's goals to ensure that the city is the greenest it can be is what I'm here to do.
Okay. I don't know if you're the good doctor or...
I am.
Okay, so Doc?
I've never been called Doc. That's nice. I'm the executive director of the Center for Climate Change Solutions at UCLA's Institute of the Environment, and in that role, largely the role I play is to work both with scientists and technologists that we have at UCLA and other campuses, other universities around Los Angeles, but also with community organizations, businesses, et cetera, in order to ensure that we not only have sort of the best knowledge of scientific and technical opportunities for doing things like green retrofit, but also ensuring that they match community goals as well. So I also work a tremendous amount with social policy experts, et cetera.
Okay, now Mr. Gallegos isn't here, Bill? No? Well, we'll just deal with this. You have any questions for... Okay, so it's been moved by Ms. Perry and seconded by Ms. Alarcon. So on items 2, 3, and 4, we will forward their recommendations to the City Council. That action will happen today at 10. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, Mr.
No,
Alarcon.
it's not relative to this. It's actually in general comment, but I don't know the history of this whole program. I know that the motion was introduced in 2006, and I know that the Jobs Committee has jurisdiction over the WIA projects, but last year the Jobs Committee met 4 times, and so as the new chair, and we've met I think 6 times already, or 8 times. I just want to extend that I would like to work with the chair on making sure that this initiative gets all the attention it can, and it really needs to be a focus of the Jobs Committee as well as this committee. So,
and I concur,
Yeah.
and it would be a pleasure to work with you. I truly believe that you would bring a lot to the table because I know of your commitment. So we'll figure out a way to do this. Maybe we can have joint follow-up hearings or something like that.
But I also want to mention that the very first sustainable building in the city of Los Angeles is the Lakeview Terrace Library, and that was based on an initiative when I was council member the first time, because we took money from the Lopez Canyon landfill to make the investment, and that's why I'm very passionate about the issue of sustainable construction. I want to thank everybody for their involvement, and I do know most of these people, and they're okay. Even though Bill's not here, he's okay.
He's okay.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who does that leave us with, Ms. Barclay?
That leaves us with item 6, an appointment by the mayor of Ms. Teresa Sanchez for the term ending September 30th, 2010. Item 7, what? Oh, excuse me, 2011. Item number 7, appointment by the council president of Mr. Jason Elias for the term ending September 30th, 2010, and appointment of the chair of the HCD committee of Mr. Kim Kraft for the term ending September 30th, 2010.
I plead temporary insanity for that appointment. Now, who else? Who are we missing this time? Is Jason not?
No, I'm here.
Jason's here.
It's Kim. Kim's.
Kim? Who are we missing? So we're missing Bill. Anyway, you guys start off.
Good morning, council members. Teresa Sanchez, Local 721. I would say that as someone who's worked in the field of workforce development for over 20 years, and on behalf of Local 721, I've been involved in the coalition effort that brought the ordinance into being, and it was based in part on our experience with the successful city jobs program in the early 2000s in the context of creating alternative pathways into good civil service careers for folks coming off welfare. And it's in that with the same goals and the same spirit that we worked with the Apollo Alliance to develop the Green Building Retrofit program.
Good morning, Jason Elias, also with Local 721. Really, my expertise in this area, I work representing the locals' gardeners. So I've been involved in a lot of the open space development issues. I sit on the board of the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust and trying to push forward the quick, rapid development of open space in LA, and especially in communities that need those parks, which also happen to be the communities that need good jobs as well. So I'm trying to also connect water efficiency issues to open space development as well. So like Teresa, like everybody else, we believe green jobs can be good jobs. They can also be public jobs if we leverage all of the money that's coming in and from various different funding streams, including stimulus. So I'm really excited to work on this and bring the people's gardeners and other green workers to the table.
Well, thank you both very much for your commitment to serve. I have no questions. Okay. Then without objection, we'll forward your recommendations to the City Council. And again, that'll be heard later today. What I think I want to do is on items 5 and 8, let's hold those for a while just in case they get here later.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to what item, Ms. Barclay?
Item 13, sir.
Item 13. So now if we could get Al to come forward, and Curtis, and Jim Clark. I thought I just saw Jim. Well, yeah, I just saw him. Anyway, we'll start with you.
Okay, my name is Al Sabo,
Yep.
and I'm a resident in Jan Perry's 9th District, a renter at that. It's as simple as Econ 101. You don't have to be an Albert Einstein to realize that continuous rent increases, annual rent increases of 6, 5, 4, or even 3% is not sustainable for a person living on a fixed income. Just 3 years ago, my rent amounted to 30% of my income. Currently, it's at 40%, and within the next 3 years, it will eat up more than 50% of my income. How long can I and 70% of the other residents in my building manage to stay afloat if the rent stabilization ordinance isn't fixed in favor of long-term tenants? As it is, our senior citizens, disabled vets, and retired persons are on a one-way trek to homelessness. Rather than granting landlords automatic rent increases, increases should be based the same way as an example my Social Security benefits are based. For example, during the next 2 years, my benefits have been frozen. And even when increases do come back, they're generally in the 2% annual range. Let's make our RSO something we all can live with. Without true rent control, we're breeding a new generation of thousands of homeless folks who have never been homeless before in their entire lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, before you start, Curtis, for those of you that are here for your first committee, this is your first time before this committee, we will allow you to applaud speakers, but you have to applaud the committee first. So now you have to give the committee the same. All right. Now you know the rules. Curtis, good to see you again.
In response to what you just said, we get a guaranteed applause. You guys, it depends on on your performance.
Oh, Curtis, you starting early in the morning.
For us.
Come on.
Come on. There you go. Thanks.
Come on.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Mr. Curtis Killings.
Yeah,
and I am a member of L.A. CAN. I am also a renter covered by LARSO. You familiar with that? Okay. Today, I want to talk about all the gravy landlords take from us each year by the gas electricity pass-through. The study by the Economic Roundtable has shown the extra 2% for gas and electricity is not reflected in the actual cost. Okay? Gravy. We tenants are extremely rent burdened and can no longer bear to give extra money to landlords. The additional 2% for gas and electricity must be eliminated. Okay? Back in 1776, unjust taxation, revolution, it's kind of reminiscent, unjust taxing. This I see as one of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Okay, now we've got Maria Menza and Maria Sandoval. Maria.
Muy buenos días, concejales. Y estoy aquí, pertenezco a Unión de Vecinos Vivo aquí en Boyle Heights.
Good morning, council members. I live here, I belong to Unión de Vecinos, or Neighbors United, and I live in Boyle Heights.
Estoy aquí para apoyar que quiero dar mi testimonio como inquilino.
I'm here in support, well, I would like to first give my testimony as a tenant.
Y he pasado estorgamiento en mi vivienda con el dueño.
The property owner of where I live has harassed me.
Y quiero dar una recomendación de que que tengan otras personas saber de sus derechos como inquilinos.
I want to make a recommendation, if you can assign other people to inform renters of their renter rights.
Y para que ellos no pasen lo que a mí y otras personas han pasado de los problemas que hemos tenido con el dueño.
So that other renters don't have to go through the same problems that we face with the owner of the building who's harassed us.
Y mi recomendación es de que podemos tocar puertas, estar tocando las puertas para que las personas, los inquilinos sepan sus derechos, para que ellos estén preparados.
My recommendation is to go knocking on doors and inform other renters of their renters' rights so they can be prepared.
Y para que ellos sepan realmente los problemas que están, cómo defenderse cuando tengan ellos problemas con el dueño.
So that renters have the knowledge of how to defend themselves if and when they face problems with the property owners.
Eso es todo.
That's my comment.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Mi nombre es María Mesa.
My name is María Mesa.
Buenos días. Yo estoy aquí para pedirles, si fuera posible, y ojalá y si fuera posible, que nos ampliaran el control de renta.
Good morning. My name is María Mesa, and I'm here to ask you if it's possible, and I believe that it is possible for you guys to extend
Que amplíen los años del control de renta.
to extend the years of rent control.
Porque ¿qué está sucediendo? Que como a los dueños de la ciudad les exige que arreglen las viviendas.
Because you know what is happening, since the city makes the owners do repairs of the properties and the housing.
A los dueños se les hace más fácil destruir los edificios en vez de repararlos, y esos ya no quedan bajo control de renta.
And in those situations, the owners a lot of times see it much easier just to destroy their own property. And when they do that, the property leaves or gets out from the rent control ordinance.
Nosotros somos de un vecindario prácticamente más bien pobre.
We live in a neighborhood that's practically considered lower income or poor.
Los condominios que están construyendo no los podemos ni siquiera pagar la renta, mucho menos tener acceso a comprarlos.
The condominiums that are being built, we cannot afford to even pay the rent, much less to purchase the condominiums that are being, or the housing that's being converted to condominiums.
Nosotros estamos pidiendo que el año se mueva para el 1995.
We're asking that the year be changed to 1995.
Porque en nuestro barrio nos han quitado mucha vivienda también, construyendo el metro, construyendo las oficinas de las policías.
Because in our neighborhood, a lot of housing has been eliminated due to the metro line, due to the police stations that have been built.
Y hasta en los mismos apartamentos de multitud, no vuelven a construir ni siquiera la mitad de los que destruyen.
And even in the high number apartments, they don't build the same number of apartments that they destroy.
Por eso nosotros estamos pidiendo eso del control de renta, para que más gente pueda tener los beneficios que nosotros tenemos.
That's what we're asking for, the extension to another year or more years of rent control, so that more renters could have the same benefit as we have in some of the buildings.
Ahorita como está la situación económica, no nos podemos mover de nuestros apartamentos porque esos apartamentos los sufren hasta el triple de lo que están cobrando.
Right now, with the economic situation, we're not able to move to other apartments because other apartments are charging 3 times the rent that we're currently paying where we are.
Por eso les estamos pidiendo que por favor tomen en cuenta nuestras peticiones.
That's why we're asking you to please consider our requests.
Muchas gracias. Buenos días.
Thank you so much for coming. Okay, Blanca Espinoza and Cesar Palma. Good morning and welcome.
Sí, buenos días. Mi nombre es Blanca Espinoza. Pertenezco a la organización Unión de Vecinos.
Good morning, my name is Blanca Espinosa and I belong to Unión de Vecinos organization.
Yo quiero reforzar lo que han dicho mis compañeras hasta este momento.
I would like to reiterate what my fellow renters have stated to this point.
Porque en la ciudad de Los Ángeles hay muchos apartamentos que están en muy malas condiciones.
Because in the city of Los Angeles there are a lot of apartments that are in very bad conditions.
Los dueños de los apartamentos, cuando van a la inspección, solamente hacen Mickey Mouse de supuestamente arreglar los apartamentos.
The apartment owners, when the inspectors go to inspect the buildings, they do Mickey Mouse repairs just for temporary reasons when the inspector goes.
Y solamente cuando pertenecemos a una organización como Unión de Vecinos, los inspectores y los dueños son enforzados a hacer reparaciones no como deben de hacer, pero un poquito mejor.
And only when we belong to organizations such as Unión de Vecinos is when the property owners and inspectors are forced to really carry out and make sure that the repairs are not only done up to code, but a little better than up to code.
Por eso es muy importante que ustedes hagan que los dueños arreglen los apartamentos, porque solamente de esa manera nosotros vamos a poder tener una vivienda digna.
This is why it is very important for you guys to make the property owners do the repairs in the apartments and the buildings, because if they do that, this is the only way we are going to be able to have a decent living housing.
Ahora, estamos pidiendo que se extienda el control de renta, porque con lo del metro, con otras, la policía, en donde nosotros vivimos, hicieron una estación muy grande de policía, derribaron muchísima vivienda que era de precio accesible a la comunidad.
This is the reason why we're asking you to please extend the rent control, because with a lot of the situations that are going on, such as the metro, the large police station that was built around there, a lot of the housing was demolished and eliminated. And those housings were affordable housing.
¿Y qué está sucediendo con todas las personas que están siendo desalojadas de sus hogares y tienen que pagar el doble o el triple de lo que pagaban antes y en malas condiciones?
And you know what it's resulting is a lot of people that are being vacated from these apartments. They have to go and rent another housing or apartment for 2 times or 3 times the rent that they were paying. And due to that, a lot of them are ending in very bad situations. But not only to pay 2 or 3 times more, but those apartments that they move to are also in very, very bad conditions.
Es por eso que nosotros estamos pidiendo que ustedes investiguen la situación en la que el este de Los Ángeles está viviendo y muchas otras comunidades como Bohais, porque nosotros como...
This is the reason why we're asking you to please investigate the situation that a lot of the housing is currently, the condition a lot of the housing is currently under, especially in East LA, in Boyle Heights, and in other areas of Los Angeles.
Porque cuando nosotros como organización Unión de Vecinos salimos a hablar con las personas acerca de sus derechos o acerca de las condiciones en las que ellas están viviendo, son muy diferentes a las que nosotros venimos a escuchar aquí.
Because when we, as an organization, members of the organization Unión de Vecinos, when we go out talking to our neighbors about their rights and their living conditions, some of the things that we hear in other places are very different than the things we're hearing here right now.
Por eso es que nosotros estamos pidiendo que analicen esa situación y que por favor tomen en consideración lo que nosotros estamos viniendo a hablar con ustedes.
And this is the reason why we're asking you to please analyze the situation and please take into consideration all the comments that we're here sharing with you today.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. Mr. Palma?
Buenos días, mi nombre es César Palma, vengo representando a la organización de la comunidad presente.
Good morning, my name is Cesar Palma. I'm here representing the organization
Comunidad presente.
Comunidad Presente.
Estoy aquí para decirles de que queremos cambios en las leyes y que no podemos vivir con las leyes de los 70, 78.
I'm here to ask you that for changes in the laws, in the ordinances. We cannot apply those laws that existed in the 70s or in 1978 to today.
Necesitamos reformar el control de renta,
We need a rent control reform,
congelar los aumentos a las rentas que están muy altas,
we need to freeze the rent increases because as it is, they are already very high.
extender el control de renta para todos los edificios
We
y
need,
alquileres hasta 1995.
we need to extend the rent control ordinance to all the buildings that up to 1995.
Crear un nuevo estándar de inspecciones.
We need to create a new inspection standard.
Necesitamos que inspectores que hablen nuestra lengua
We need inspectors who speak our language.
y dar o sea, necesitamos parar el Mickey Mouse.
We need to stop the Mickey Mouse.
O sea,
Yeah, no, that,
no
I
más-
think I understand. I think I got that one.
O sea, no queremos ya más Mickey Mouse.
We don't want Mickey Mouse anymore. I'm referring to the Mickey Mouse repairs.
No, I got it.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Okay, so those are... Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to begin the panel discussion, but I do want to say to Mr. Killings, you see, everybody that was nice got a loud applause. Yours was I'm just telling. So next time, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You're not being realistic, Curtis. Anyway, those that are going to lead the panel discussion, please come forward. Curtis, I couldn't help that one. No, yours was good. No, I'll get you the next time. I'm gonna be practicing, working on it. No, you were good. You were good. Okay, how do you want to start this out? I think you got about a half hour.
Great. We're going to start by giving you some material.
Okay.
And along with that material, we have a PowerPoint presentation up here on the wall.
I guess we're a little technically challenged today.
Right. But we overcame.
But we have it here now, so.
Right.
Okay.
And I guess we're ready to roll. All right. So,
identify yourself for the record.
My name is Larry Gross. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition for Economic Survival. And per the committee rules and regulations, I'd first like to applaud the chair of the committee and the committee members for giving us the opportunity to make this presentation today.
This is important.
That's Mr. Killings.
We'd like to first commend LAHD and Economic Roundtable for their hard work that provided extremely interesting data. The panelists here today will respond to the findings and recommendations of the RSO study and will present recommendations developed by an alliance of most of all the major tenant rights organizations and advocates in Los Angeles. Our panel consists of 3 appointed RSO Study Oversight Committee members, Barbara Schultz with Legal Aid, Neil Richmond with UCLA's Urban Planning School, and myself. Also with us is Steve Diaz from LA Community Action Network and Claudia Gomez from Unión de Vecinos. We found that the study is extremely thorough and reveals very important information. But unfortunately, the recommendations appear to be somewhat disconnected from the findings. The stated purpose of the RSO is to strike a balance between protecting tenants from excessive rent hikes while ensuring landlords a fair return. The study indicates that the balance no longer exists. The data clearly shows that the rent burden of LA tenants has significantly increased, with more tenants paying a greater percentage of their income to rent. 58% of tenants are rent burdened, paying over 30% of their income to rent. And 31% of those tenants are severely rent burdened, paying over 50% of their income to rent. And it is those who can least afford it who are the ones who are impacted the most and the hardest. 56% of those earning 35% a year or less are paying over 50% of their income to rent. More than 40% of seniors and 45% of disabled tenants pay over 50% of their income to rent. Rents have increased most where rents were lowest and are in our lowest income communities of Central, South, and East Los Angeles. It is clear to us that factors such as the 3% rent increase floor, the additional utility rate rent hikes, various allowable pass-throughs, and the lack of adequate enforcement and providing information on people's rights have all contributed to the rise and the level of the rent burden to tenants. Together with the fact that the poverty rate for LA tenants have significantly increased, with a quarter of all LA renters now living below the federal poverty rate, it's no wonder that Forbes magazine recently reported that LA is ranked number 2 in cities which is hardest to get by on.
Mr. Gross, just hold for 1 second, and if you could hold his time.
Yeah, please, thank you. The only reason I interrupt is just to get a clarification that the Census Bureau has issued a new standard for the determination of poverty. So I'm wondering if your numbers are reflective of the old standard or the standard that was announced just last week.
Actually, it's probably the old standard. I didn't get this from last week. So maybe that level has increased even more.
The Census Bureau has a better rate.
Great. I appreciate that information. So given all of these facts and factors, we see that the RSO goal of balance is severely broken. And the situation facing LA renters is one of more burden and less balance. And we need to fix this. If concrete steps are not taken to alleviate this rent burden, then the $1 million the city has spent of taxpayers' money on this study will be of waste. And the hardest hit LA renters will continue to suffer. And yet, at the very same time, the study shows us that landlords have prospered under the RSO. And so with that statement, I want to now turn it over to Neil Richmond, who will expand on the findings related to the situation facing landlords.
Thank you again.
Good morning.
Thank you again very much for the opportunity to be here today. I also want to reiterate what an excellent study I think Dan Fleming, the roundtable, all the consultants on the roundtable did on the project. The challenge is there's so much information, how do we sort of really focus in on some of the key variables there? And I thought the one that was most interesting and most important was that 79% of the RSO units were bought since 1979. So in essence, property owners knew, I mean, if you own your property prior to 1979, you're in pretty good shape. You paid off a 30-year mortgage, and you own these properties free and clear if you happen to refinance. Subsequently, there was knowledge that these properties were under rent stabilization, and it isn't a real surprise that you're facing some limitations on the amount that you can charge. Net operating income exceeded the CPI every year since 1999. And so what I wanted to just review, which I'm all familiar with, is that net operating income is gross income minus vacancy loss minus operating income, and your net operating income is used for either cash flow or debt. So the challenge is when your rents go up, there's a tendency to want to refinance and increase your debt. If you increase your debt, your cash flow shrinks. And so that, I think, has been one of the primary challenges and one of the stresses that landlords are under, is there's been a growth in debt as property values grow. Under the NOI analysis, $30,000 to $40,000 increase during this period of 1999 to 2007, but the actual value is $40,000 to $127,000 because the cap rate has dropped during that period. So those are the actual increases in property values. So it's important to realize when people complain about cash flow that the real value is really in appreciation rather than in cash flow very often, and as well tax benefits. From 2000 to 2006, median rents in the RSO stock increased at about the same rate as the non-RSO stock, which I think is kind of interesting. And so you can't really call it rent control. It is in some ways, as it's called, rent stabilization, so that rents are somewhat predictable for them. It may be more, but they know they're not going to be evicted in a month or 2 months because rents are going to skyrocket. But they're going up just about the same rate as the non-RSO units. The next PowerPoint slide, and this, I just want to reiterate what Larry said. It's very interesting that the median rents increased in RSO units in the Valley, South Valley, Central LA, equal or greater to West LA. And I think that's very telling, that there's a tremendous pressure on the lowest income people, and in actual both dollar value and percentage value. So what that suggests, and I think the study shows, is there's a surprising lack of difference between lower income and higher income neighbors with regards to the price of rental housing. And then you ask yourself, why is that? And I would say there are fair housing issues that are involved here. That you look at the ethnic distribution between the city, and people of color often are not able to move into higher income communities. It can also be on the basis of assets. When I rented in LA, they looked at my assets before they rented to them. And if you don't have assets, you still got to pay a lot for your rent. You just don't get in to the west side. Rental units in LA are in small buildings. Overwhelming. I mean, 1 to 4 units, 1/3 of all units, 5 to 19 unit buildings, another third of all units. These are particularly small in East LA, South LA, the harbor. But again, it's important to realize that the rate of appreciation is virtually the same for all building sizes. So I just want to finish my portion of it by just kind of reiterating one point. About 25% of the buildings with 5+ units were purchased in 2005 or later, which means they're heavily financed. And I bought a duplex in Culver City. I am over-financed. I wish someone would come in and help me with my equity problems. Unfortunately, there is kind of caveat emptor. We're all knowledgeable or unknowledgeable about the market. We take risks. And if you're over-financed, you bought the building often for appreciation rather than cash flow, and you're stuck with a low cash flow. So those are all my comments.
Thank you. Ms. Perry has a question.
Just out of curiosity, why did you buy a building at the high?
Because I'm really dumb. I might be at the university, but I'm really dumb.
Hold your time, Alex.
Okay, well, you don't appear to be dumb.
I sometimes act much more emotionally than rationally.
Did you need it for a tax shelter?
Yeah, actually, that is true. My accountant said you need some more tax shelter. That was before my income dropped.
And so then you were overfinanced because you paid.
Yeah, that is a much more accurate.
Now, are you upside down in your mortgage?
Oh, yeah, I'm very upside down. I'm refinancing. Yeah.
You cannot refinance.
Yeah, well, actually, I've got to be in default for a couple months in order to refinance at an interest-only loan. But I mean, yeah, I really, and yeah, again, it was my accountant saying you really need this tax deduction.
So you got a no negative amortization loan?
I'm going to be getting an interest-only loan is what's going to
That's
happen.
no negative amortization.
Yeah, no negative amortization, but I'm not going to be paying down principal.
So you basically did it to be able to deduct the interest
I
payment?
basically did it, again, I just kind of said, oh, I really like this place, and and had some inheritance, so I kind of slapped it down there, and now I'm upside down. But, you know, there were a lot of economists who didn't predict what was going to happen either.
Right.
And so I appreciate the fact that people bought, but this is kind of capitalism, kind of the way things work. And, you know, it's hard to say that they need these increases because we make economic mistakes.
Okay.
Well, Neil, wait. Neil, I appreciate your candor. What area of Culver City? I used to represent.
I live right near La Cienega. I live La Cienega in Washington.
Okay, I'm
right on the border.
I used to live about 4 blocks west of La Cienega on Roberts.
That's where I live.
You're
By
kidding.
the park.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
He owns your own old building. He'll give you a deal, too.
I was 3 houses. I was on the east side of the street, across from the school, about 3 houses or 4 from the park.
I live right there. I mean, is it a duplex?
No, it wasn't then. And I think I know your house.
Property.
I think I do.
I really like the park and I like the neighborhood.
It's a great area. Okay, I'm
It's funny.
sorry.
It's funny how the definition of dump can change over time.
Is it right?
But I want to make a comment about that because we laugh and I think we're being somewhat facetious. But the fact of the matter is that an entire society can't be dumb. When foreclosures are hitting tens of millions.
Exactly.
It's not an issue of dumb. It's gaming, and it's market forces at play that an individual can't necessarily control.
Yeah, and again, I teach housing, and so I was being obviously facetious. It's an enormous crisis, what's happening now. But you asked me why I pay too much, and it was I couldn't see what was on the horizon, and I'm supposed to be able to see what's on the horizon.
Well, the seed was planted that appreciation was going to occur. And it was widespread. It was a societal decision, and it blew up. No, don't apologize. That's not necessary.
Okay.
I think public policy also has.
You may want to identify for the record. And before you do that, see, my kids use that park as their backyard. Okay, so you'll just hang on in there. It'll work. Sorry, Barbara.
Barbara Schultz, Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. When we're talking about public policy, we need to talk about what we can do for everyone. I mean, those folks, obviously, we have policy around foreclosures, but what we're talking about right now is the rent burden on tenants. And our first set of recommendations directly address that rent burden. And our recommendations include eliminating the 3% floor, eliminating the 2% gas and electric pass-through, both of which were recommended by the Economic Roundtable, eliminating the pass-throughs for tenants of fees and rent registration. But I'm going to let Steve Diaz from LA Can talk a little more about the first two.
So good morning. Just to real briefly introduce myself as well. My name is Steve Diaz, and I'm a tenant as well as an organizer with LA Can. LA Can is a membership organization in the Skid Row community of downtown. I am a native-born Angelino and have been a renter all my life. Currently, I live in an RSO protected unit in downtown LA. For the last couple of months, LA Can, along with Unión de Vecinos and other community organizations, have been working together to create these solutions and give input in these solutions as well. Between 1993 and 2007, the CPI has been below 3% 10 times, yet landlords are still able to raise the rents. And I'm talking about eliminating the 3% rent increase, by the way. A tenant who moved into an RSO protected unit in 1994 paying $400 a month will be paying $628 a month in rent in 2008, just with the minimum floor, which in some cases actually equals 5%, because we are also victims of the 2% pass-through for gas and electricity. Without the floor, the same tenant will be paying $580 of rent in 2008, which is about $50 a month less. This may seem like a small difference, but in reality, it is huge for people like us. If you look at it on a yearly basis, $400 a month, and for $400 a month for a 12-month period equals a little less under $5,000 a year in 1994. If you look at it now, it equals almost $8,000 in rent. Also, it should be noted that no other jurisdiction with CPI calculations allow a minimum floor. Ending the 3% floor was one of the primary recommendations of the consultants as well. Just real briefly, these two recommendations are especially important now during the economic crisis. Both ending the floor rent increase and the unfair electric gas pass-through are essential to restoring fair balance between renters and landlords. I would use it to create a rainy day fund that I could access to pay rent or use on Medi-Cal if my income fell short, said 52-year-old Joe Lurera, who is currently paying $471 a month in rent. The other recommendation is eliminating the unfair gas and electric pass-through. Using residential hotels as an example, in 2008, the city of Los Angeles declared residential hotels as housing of last resort. Residential hotels are home to many low-income individuals and also have been home to me many times during my life. Like many other low-income tenants, we are most likely to be victims of this unfair gas and electric pass-through. Only 10% of RSO housing stock does only in 10% of the RSO housing stock does the owner pay gas and electric. 90% of us. Oh, I'm sorry, I got the number wrong. 90% of us are victim to the additional 2% increase. 10%, I'm sorry. Both the consultant and LHD recommended the elimination of the 2% pass-through that a landlord is allowed to pass through to us when he pays electric and gas. The report specifically stated that there is no connection between annual master meter increase authorized by the RSO and the actual cost increase. This is a windfall for landlords. For example, another example, a tenant who moved in and paying $300 in rent in 1998, by 2009 will be paying $431 without the pass-through and $532 with the pass-through. This is a huge difference and could make the difference between making our housing and losing our housing. If I could just real briefly use myself an example, please. I was able to find a location with a lesser amount of rent, and because of that, I have glasses now. I can actually see you, Councilmember Wesson. And
you're not missing much.
You can remove them if you choose. You can remove them if you choose.
Yeah, yes, if I choose, right? But I had to find the location which was hard to pay my rent, to be able to find cheaper rent. And this is what we're going through. I throw it back to Larry.
I appreciate your testimony.
Our other recommendation around the rent burden is around the pass-throughs of the fees that the housing department charges. Right now, they charge two separate fees: a registration fee of $18, which the landlords can pass 50% of that onto the tenant, and the SCEP fee of $35.52, and 100% of that can be passed through to the tenants. It turns out, though, interestingly, from the survey done in the study, that 80% of landlords say they don't pass through the fees. And in fact, 85% of mom and pops say they don't pass through the fees. And I think that's because they're seeing it as a cost of business that they can recover at vacancy decontrol. So that said to us, well, why pass it through to tenants at all? Because it really is a burden on tenants to pay that extra amount, and obviously it does not seem to be a burden on landlords, since the majority of them seem to be paying it anyway. Alternatively, if you're not down with eliminating the pass-throughs altogether, which is our first choice, at the very least, the fees should be split. Because right now, as I said, 100% of the SCEP fee can be passed through to the tenants. And you know, it seems as though a lot of the poorest tenants, like those in residential hotels, are getting the pass-throughs. And it seems from the figures that most of the mom and pops, 85%, don't bother to pass it through, that it's probably the larger owners passing it through. They don't really need it. Let's just get rid of the pass-throughs, or at least let's split it. And our other suggestion that is comes out of the study is rent registration. Right now, you've got, according to the study, 27% of rent increases are illegal, and that actually goes to 33% for those making under $25,000. We've got a huge problem with illegal rent increases. Rent registration could really improve this. Now, I understand...
Let me ask you a quick question. Why do you think that is?
The illegal rent increases? Well, I think
it's primarily the majority of the property owners don't know that they're, or what do you think?
Well, I think that the fact that it's more prevalent with lower income tenants, possibly immigrants as well, non-English speakers, I think that those are the tenants least likely to know their rights. Those are the tenants least likely to complain to the housing department about this. So if we had registration, hopefully someday on a computer where someone could just look up and say, this is what the rent should be, I think that, and we've heard landlords, small landlords specifically, say that they would find it very helpful too, to have housing department let them know how much rent they can charge for their unit.
See, that's what I was trying to get at, because it's just part of me believes that a significant percentage of the landlords just are unaware.
Well, and
if they could use some education as well.
And that's the other thing with the surcharges, is it makes it even more confusing, because they've got this $3 surcharge for SCEP, which they can't put the rent increase on, but it's hard to figure out. So it is complicated.
The housing department says that there would be an increase to the cost. And you guys, are you in agreement with that? Are you okay with that? Or?
I understand that this is going to be money, and that money is very tight right now. You know, it doesn't seem like it's a large amount of money if they pass through the cost to landlords. It's like $4 a year per unit. But I also could see starting with some kind of pilot project. For example, maybe those landlords who have been found to be giving illegal rent increases. I think there are some creative ways to think about how we could start this.
I would really like to hone in on what specifically you would like to see, because I think that I really would like to see a registration. I've always supported registration, but we've never seemed to be able to get there. And you know, the biggest problem with rent control is most of the people that are renting don't know anything about it, and it's a lot of mom and pops that they don't know anything about it either, as the chair was saying. But I think with this registration, it can solve that problem to a great degree. And so,
I mean, best case,
be worth, you know, $4 or $5 a year.
Best case scenario, I think we should try for overall registration. I'm just saying, if money becomes a barrier we can't get over right now, there may be ways to at least start that process, see how it works with some kind of pilot project.
Well, it would also be a tremendous disincentive to rip off people.
Exactly. I mean, I could tell you it would really help us in UD court, because we often find that there have been illegal rent increases, which, but the problem is sometimes proving it. A lot of landlords don't give receipts. You know, there are difficulties. So this registration would be really helpful. So many of you have seen that we've handed out our recommendations, and the first page, which is pretty much what we've gone over, are our recommendations only dealing with the rent burden. But the next two pages, which is front and back, have to do with the recommendations as relates to what the housing department gave you. The housing department gave you A through G recommendations, and we've already touched on a couple of those, and we just want to highlight the most important ones to us. And I just want to note that we aren't dealing with capital improvements right now, because as far as I know, that's coming through in a separate motion, though we'd be happy to talk about it later if you'd like. So I want to turn it over to Claudia Gomez.
Oh, hi.
I was waiting for you.
Okay, I'm going to say it in Spanish first, because it's my first language and I feel more comfortable talking about it, and also to the audience who speaks Spanish, and then I'm going to say it in English. So, oh, sorry. Mi nombre es Claudia, voy a hacer primero en español y después en inglés, ¿ok? Mi nombre es Claudia, yo soy una inquilina de la ciudad de Los Ángeles. I'm so nervous. Estoy muy
Don't
nerviosa. Y también soy una organizadora de Unión de Vecinos. Y esta organización está en el este de Los Ángeles y trabaja con inquilinos. Es una buena idea que los residentes y los inquilinos de toda la ciudad de Los Ángeles tengan conocimiento sobre sus derechos. Pero una de nuestras recomendaciones es que contraten a organizaciones para que trabajen de puerta a puerta a comunicar a otros residentes sobre sus derechos y responsabilidades, la cual apoyaría y respondería a las dudas de las personas a las que se les está pasando la información o distribuyendo este tipo de información. Por mi experiencia, muchos de los inquilinos que hemos hablado durante todo este tiempo, cuando hemos salido a dar información o a mirar las condiciones de vivienda, tienen miedo de hablar, aún así que tú estés ahí hablando con ellos y tratando de ayudarlos. Tienen miedo de decir que viven en malas condiciones y es muy difícil, pero es importante que se llegue a tocar la puerta y a decirles que entiendan y aclarar sus dudas como sus derechos y sus responsabilidades. Recibir una carta no es suficiente, no va a dar un impacto. En mi experiencia, yo como inquilina he pasado por aumentos ilegales con mi familia cuando yo era una joven de high school y el dueño nos quería aumentar $500 de renta de un mes a otro. Mi mamá no sabía qué hacer y fue al departamento de vivienda, y cuando llegó al departamento de vivienda solamente le dijeron, es un aumento ilegal y solamente es el 3% que puede aumentarte. Entonces, ella no resolvió sus dudas, qué podía hacer, fue a una organización como Unión de Vecinos, se le mandó una carta al dueño aclarándole que el aumento era ilegal y que solamente podía aumentar el 3%. Y que teníamos que comprar un money order y pagarle el aumento del 3% al dueño para así tener algo que nos proteja a nosotros mismos, porque nosotros pagamos nuestra renta en cash, en efectivo. Además de esto, por no saber nuestros derechos como familia y como inquilinos, no teníamos calentón, ya teníamos viviendo muchos años en esta propiedad sin calentón y también tuvimos una inspección donde el inspector jamás volvió a hacer la reinspección, y esto lo aprendí durante el proceso de mi educación de inquilina. So I'm going to say it in English now.
I'm a little disappointed, though. You didn't use Mickey Mouse. I was waiting.
That's coming.
For you. I was waiting for you to use
Well, I'm going to mention
Mr.
it
Palmer's, because he got my attention on that. Go right ahead.
You ruined the joke.
Yeah, I understood the Mickey Mouse.
Okay, so
And sometimes Policia, too. I get that.
as I said in Spanish, I'm a tenant and I'm an organizer from Unión de Vecinos, and it's a really great idea of giving information out to people about tenants' rights and also about the responsibilities that they have as a tenant or as a landlord. And hiring community organizations to do this community outreach education by going door to door and educating the people about their rights and responsibilities. This education will also help clarify questions about information that they are receiving from us or the people who's giving it to them, and any issues regards their problems in housing. In my experience, tenants are afraid of talking about their bad housing conditions, because when we go door to door giving out information about tenants' rights and inviting them to be part of the organization, they feel afraid of saying that they live in bad conditions just because they're afraid that we're going to tell the landlord or we're going to tell the manager and they're going to get in trouble or they're going to get evicted. So I also know that most of the people that we do the outreach to, they feel more comfortable to organizations and people from the community doing this outreach because they speak the same language, they look the same as them, they are tenants and they have been through the same process, through the same problems. So as we all know, a letter information will not help a lot in the community, and it will not resolve a lot of questions that people may have at the same time that they're reading it, or they probably will not read the letter. So in my experience, I was as a tenant when I was a teenager, my mom got an illegal increase. The owner wanted us to pay $500 for just all of a sudden. We're paying $700, and he wanted to pay us $500 more. And when my mom did, she was really scared. She didn't know what to do. She went to her housing department. The only response that she got was, he can't do that. You don't have to pay $500. The legal percentage increase is 3%. So she was like, okay, but that doesn't answer my questions. I know it's a legal increase. I know that it's 3%. But then when she found out about the organization and the other vecinos, she went to this organization. They sent a letter to the landlord clarifying to him that the increase that he was giving to us was illegal. And we pay with money order because we were paying with cash at the time. We paid the money order rent with the legal increase that the housing department told us. So it's a way that will help a lot the community to have a better understanding about their responsibilities. The other thing, la otra cosa, so I'm going to go to the next one, which is expanding rent control.
Claudia, could we have use the translator so we don't run out of time?
Okay.
You want to do it in Spanish and have her translate in English?
Yeah, which is what, if you let me know in advance, we could have done that, because you just burned almost 8 minutes going both languages. I could, because see, every member of this committee, other than myself, speaks Spanish. So if I had you whispering in my ear, we could have just rolled right through not in that way.
Okay, well, I have it here in English. You want to see it in English?
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna ask for your indulgence. What I want to do is put this on hold, go back to the regular agenda, and even though we didn't get the commissioners, I think 6, 5, and 8, I think without objection, we need to move those two to the council floor as well. So without objection, that'll be the order. Okay, now we'll go, because Mr. Alarcon has to go. Thank you. And now with that, let's go back.
May I just apologize?
Please.
I just have to go to a press conference regarding the disaster in El Salvador. Gracias.
Okay, so how are we going to use this last 25 seconds wisely is the question.
I know that when there were some of the banter and questions going back, the clock was still running, so that kind of also ate into the
I'll give you a few minutes to end it, but what I'm saying, it's time to end it.
Okay, so... Okay, that's it. Okay, so I'm going to talk to the next one, which is neighborhood community. It's great that we're going to have rent control expansion. Many of our low-income families have been hit by demolition and rent control units, and the conversion of condos has hit our community members and impact by decreasing the rent control units at the same time. That has displaced our community low income from their own communities. Thanks to gentrification, this has happened, and expanding rent control for units before 1995 will give an opportunity to protect more tenants. When here in the city of LA, the majority of residents are tenants, and many of the families have been hit by this, and our family has been hit by this too. So I have a lot of things to say, but it's hard for a low-income family to pay the rent. To pay the rent when it's more than $1,000 when they're getting paid the minimum wage, and then a lot of people are moving from one apartment to the other because they don't know, sometimes they don't know their rights, and they get evicted, and then every time they move, the rents go up, and new people who can afford these rents are moving out to our communities, and obviously our community people can't pay the rent anymore because it's too high, and then the conversion of our housing being demolished and the conversion of condominiums have hit our communities too. So just to keep that in mind, we well, actually, thanks to gentrification in our communities, rents have gone up, and people have moved to place, and displacing our community just because it starts to get really expensive, and with the minimum wage. Under the state law, the rent control could be expanded all the way to 1995. So I think somebody could
So-
clarify that.
And you should not have been nervous. You did an excellent job.
Okay.
And so, in concluding, we wanted to reemphasize, when it's come to this law, the rent control law, from its inception, this city council and previous city council members that came before you always talked about this law being one of balance between renters and tenants. If this council truly believes that, then it must make the number one priority in taking action in response to this study is dealing with the rent burden and alleviating the rent burden to tenants. Otherwise, again, this study was for naught. We want to thank you for the opportunity to present our position, and we hope that you will take the appropriate actions before you.
Well, I want to thank you for coming. As you know, this is not the end of this process. This is the beginning. In a few weeks, we're going to have the panel discussion with property owners. And then after that, we hope to have some informal meetings with them and with you to see what middle ground we can find and move forward from there. So I appreciate all of you coming today. And Larry, I appreciate the level of sound that came out of you today.
Just give me the time and I'm fine.
No, I mean, I hope we have this somewhere recorded so that I can play it back for you. So I do appreciate that, and it's good to see you all. And again, Neil, you have a place in a great neighborhood. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Barclay, is there any more business before this committee?
No, sir.
Then this committee is adjourned, and thank you, Ms. Perry.